Helen R. Ladson for Brunswick Mayor for 2021. So turn 1 G get H1G0:3CE75AG6M. In this hour I have no physical opponent. My only opposition are the systems that keep people living in the harsh conditions of poverty. To uphold a society that contributes to the displacement of the poor, encourages the criminalization of poverty, and turns a blind eye to climate change for the sake of capitalism greatly offends me. I am you. I live in the blight. I live in these harsh conditions with you. I share your frustration and disappointments. I loathe the very fact that my community gives the very most yet receives the very least. I too desire change that promotes equity and equality. If I must come up, I ask that you come with me to create long-term change. Traditional problems need non-traditional approaches, and we all deserve an approach that serves us all. #EMIU #Ladson for Mayor. I have been extremely blessed to enjoy the presence of phenomenal women. My friend Jessica McQueen is one of those women. Jess is running for the Milledgeville City Council representing District 5. Our community's mental health should be all of our concern, and I am so grateful that I know women leaders who have hearts for the people. #RunJessRun.
And so if you could tell what I'm doing here is I'm prepared to lead even though I can't see. You see, the blind can't lead the blind. And leadership don't come because of the fact that you go to college or you go to a special church. Leadership basically comes from experience. And the reason I know that is because I had an E7 rating when they picked me from the weeds of Alaska to go over to Vietnam to lead a group of young men into combat. And being a blind man at the time, I didn't know what I was doing, but they didn't care. All they needed was a body that they could hold responsible as the leader. So I grabbed the young men that was in my unit and I stood them in formation in the open and started calling their names like we was back home safe at Moody Air Force Base, or as if we were at Glencoe Naval Air Station, or as if we was in Fort Stewart. That was my first day on the job in combat. And as they stood there before me, I heard a black man in the back of the formation make the same statement I just made to you about the blind can't lead the blind. But he said it in a different way. He said, this nigga gonna get us all killed. I snatched the blindness off and I said, sir, what should I do? And he said, follow me. And we went into the bunker and they led our group until I got to experience necessary for combat from them. Now, I didn't get that experience because I was smart. I didn't get that experience because they had trained me to be a leader. I got that experience because I did not have the belief that I was better than somebody else. I understood that these men who had been fighting the war before I got there, they knew what they were doing because they were still alive. What has happened to us in our city is that we've picked blind folk to lead us. And the result of that blindness has allowed them to believe that they have done something special, that they have the fortitude, and they have all of the tools that they need to become mayor of the city of Brunswick. Well, I got news for you. I watched them. In fact, I worked to make sure that Mayor Harvey became the first black mayor of the city of Brunswick. I worked to make sure that Felicia Harris became the commissioner on the South End. I worked to make sure that Vincent Williams became the commissioner on the North End. And then I watched their work. Their work ended up getting us all killed. And what ended up with that killing is they have blamed us for the blight in our community. They have blamed us for the poverty in our community. The poverty in Brunswick, Georgia is so serious that at one time, just a few years ago, it was labeled the poorest city in the state of Georgia. I didn't label it that because I've been fortunate enough to know how to steal to get me some food. I can do what, this might hurt your sister, Mark Baker can do. I'm very clever enough to get in the pulpit and lie and dance and pretend as if what I'm doing is offering you something for the money you give me in order for me to become successful at the expense of the people sitting in the pews. That has got to come to an end. We have three theme songs for our campaign. The first theme song we got is sung by an Italian by the name of Andre Bocelli. And Andre sings this song that black folk put out there called You'll Never Walk Alone. And what we know is that without having a coalition of human beings working on behalf of the poor, then what will end up happening is you will end up having leadership that talks about the idea that I'm my own man. That sounds good, but guess what 99% of that is? people who have been bought and bossed. Bought and bossed, basically, by the Chamber of Commerce and the business interests in our community. And now it is time for us to make a decision on whether we're going to continue down the pathway of that destruction or if we are going to change direction and bring about a change for the betterment of people in our community that's poor, that's oppressed, that is hurting, that needs new leadership. That new leadership needs to come from experience of the folk who have gone through the damage, that our people in Brunswick, Georgia has gone through. And trust me, everything that these folk do is so slick and so good that if you wait until Jesus comes to fix it next Sunday, what will end up happening is we will end up with the same problems that we've had for the last 8 years, that we have had Mayor Harvey, Vincent Williams, and Felicia Harris in a position to bring about the changes that we need in our community. Now we have made a decision that we're not going to endorse not another man in this city to become mayor of the city, because the city of Brunswick has never, ever had a woman in charge of the mayor's seat. Now, we have 3 theme songs. We'll repeat those so that y'all can go listen to them in private. 1, you'll never walk alone. We promise you that. We promise you, Helen, that if I have to die every step of my life to be able to bring about a change with a woman becoming mayor of the city of Brunswick, Georgia, I will do that. The other song is by a bald-headed white girl from Ireland who sings a song about one of the real problems that we have in our community, which is poverty. And out of famine, she talks about the idea that what happens is the British, the same white folk who went down the west coast of Europe into the west coast of Africa, grabbed our people and put them on the white lion, brought us here to work for them for nothing. That is at the heart of why we are in the condition we are in, because our leadership has failed to understand you cannot follow the moral direction of the people who enslave you, and their status is to keep you enslaved for the rest of your born life. And the third song, which is the one that me and our mayor love so much, is sang by Nancy Wilson. Miss Wilson talks about the notion the masquerade is over. That is really the theme song that we have with our precious young lady who took it on herself through the idea of us begging her to go through this storm that she's trying to go through as to run for mayor. Now, we had other women that lied and said that they were going to do it, but they didn't have the courage. You see, if you ain't got the courage, you ain't got no courage, you ain't got no faith. If you ain't got no faith, take God away from your lies that you tell about the notion that I know Jesus. No, you don't. Even the people who was his disciple didn't know him. Because at the very moment that they should have been standing with him at the lynching, they took their black asses and they ran like dogs and had to have women come to the aid of the project to survive his mission. And his mission is the three things that we had with our theme song. So, Miss Helen, I got some written remarks and I'm gonna shut up. The reason I don't have anybody in my church is because I want you to know this for a fact. Truth is a lonely place, but God damn it, it's the only place. And what we need to do from now on is to make sure that we deal with truth instead of these lies that we've been carried on for mostly basically all of our life. We have lied and lied. We have a program right now that have come up to us called quiet conflict. Quiet conflict is the biggest lie that has ever been told. It hurts me to my soul to even look at it. In quiet conflict, they talk about the notion of how we integrated Brunswick, Georgia without conflict. God. And then they took our hero and beat us behind on the Edmund Pettus Bridge and told us to get into some good trouble. We done lost our ever-loving mind. What is good trouble? I'm gonna do this little. My heart is heavy, y'all. And it's heavy because we've had too many games played. Right now I had a young lady call me several years ago when I got back to Brunswick. Because I wasn't going to live in Brunswick ever again in life. They arrested me in uniform. And I look back in history and I was blessed because they lynched so many of our soldiers returning from combat. You couldn't count them. It's impossible for you to count them. Not only did they lynch them on the tree, they lynched them by having all of them go off, especially to Vietnam. They drafted black folk by the thousands, the hundreds of thousands, so that they would die, and then they blame you, sister, for not having stable households. I heard one little man running for mayor talk about the notion that you ought to vote for me because I was raised in a two-parent household. That nigga don't even know. I don't care about it being on what you call him. I'm gonna call him just what he is. He don't even know that black folk were brought over here on boats and sold away from each other, pushed all over this land, sent to different places. You marry or have a baby, and guess what they do? Take the baby from you and sell them off to somewhere else. And we talking about vote for me because I was born I was raised in a two-parent household. The ghost of racism is alive and well. Let me explain this. 3 bodies of black men left in an open field, dead. Lynched because of a grocery store they owned. They were competitive, and their store was used by the community as an example of what could be accomplished by the community for themselves to escape economic slavery. Their names: Thomas Moss, Calvin McDowell, and Will Stewart. They had challenged the white businessmen, the same challenge that you got, sister, called the Chamber of Commerce and the lying white folk who have destroyed our community at will. They had killed them because they had worked for economic freedom. McDowell's eyes was pulled out of his head. His right hand was shot off. Moss begged for his life, screaming to his family, "Run like hell. Get away from here, because justice cannot be found here." I would probably do the same if it wasn't for you running for mayor, sister. Miss Ida B. Wells rose to the occasion like she had done before. She had challenged the Chesapeake, Ohio, and Southwestern Railroad. She hired a black attorney to defend her in court. That black attorney, like the Negroes running against you, was bought off by the railroad. And because of that, she had to go to a coalition community of whites to hire a white attorney, and she won her suit against the railroad. Well, the ghost of racism is alive and well. So another Miss Ida hit Louisiana and traveled all the way north, even into New York City, and tore with her wrath everything apart and left the rich folk and the poor folk in the same position. So the weak, fearful, compromising leadership that we've had is incapable of meeting climate change as an issue. They're incapable of meeting this pandemic as an issue. They're incapable of standing up against the Chamber of Commerce and their strategic schemes to keep us in the position that we are in now. They're incapable of standing up against homelessness. They want the well pushed out in the woods. And they're incapable of dealing with poverty. So we reached out to Miss Helen Ladson. Miss Ladson, we said, please, Miss Ladson, please, Miss Ladson, please run for mayor. And we have a thing that we believe. Freedom does not beg. Freedom demands. And freedom, if they don't, when it demands, if it gets its will, it will expand. But if it don't, it will explode. But we knew how important this was that we begged Miss Helen to run for mayor of the city of Brunswick, Georgia. We begged two other women. They lied to us. I don't give a damn if they hear that I'm telling y'all the truth. They lied to us. They said that they would work with Mrs. Ladson. in order to bring about the changes that we need for poor people in our community. And they waited until the last minute and said, we can't do it. But Miss Ladson, good God Almighty, with all of the insults and all of the challenges, don't wear no African clothes.
That's right.
Don't wear your hair like that.
That's right.
Climate change ain't a local issue.
That's right.
They did all of that crap.
Super fun sight, so.
But she standing tall. So the two ladies we mentioned earlier, you proclaim boldly the same attitude that both of them had. Brilliant, bold, black, female leadership for the city of Brunswick. Miss Helen Ladson. Excuse me, y'all. I get a little nervous.
Thank you all for coming. My name is Helen Ladson. Thank you, my Reverend Zach Live. I have had many questions of who am I? Who are you? I am you. I am a product of your sacrifices. I am a product of what remains after integration. I am a product of what remains of this city that was once so busy and beautiful for the African American community. Did we have disparities? Yes, we did. But we also had 40% economic power in the city of Brunswick.
Absolutely.
That 40% of economic power has now shifted to 40% poverty in the city of Brunswick.
That's correct.
And many of those people look like you,
That's right.
look like me.
That's right.
I am you. I am the opportunities that you all were not afforded during the times that you were in your youth. I am the face of the opportunities that you had to leave your city to go to another city and build that up and did not want to come back home.
Amen.
I am you. I am you. The ones who, when they came back home, saw no change. I am here because of opportunities. I am here because of the mentorship of women like Inez Bouncer, who had me going door to door at the age of 8 and 9 years old to ask if you would like to subscribe for Crisis Magazine. I am you. I am the face of opportunities with people like Miss Ann Fuller, who gave up her time to groom young women like me, like myself, to speak in public, at public engagements. I am you. I am a child. I am a product of opportunity. All of those opportunities have given me the experience to serve, because no leader is a leader if they are unwilling to serve the people, the community in which they say they come to represent. I am you. I live in the blight, but I don't see blight, I see opportunity. I see a chance to put back and pour back into a community that had been given up on. I am you. the opportunities that were promised, but also taken away. I have seen the projects that have come to our communities and all of a sudden have run out of money to be funded. I am you. I am the dream deferred that is right in this city. I am you. So what happens to a dream deferred? Does it shrivel up and die?
Well.
Not today.
Yeah.
And not in the future. Today we build. Today, without any titles, I can stand before you and say, I break ground at community gardens. So our people don't have to go to Winn-Dixie or Walmart to pay $3 for organic bell pepper. I am you. I sit with you. I break ground in places that are blighted, and we build parks so our people can see the beauty and the majesty in their community. I am you. This is not something that I wanted to do. This is something that I was asked to do.
Amen.
But in that asking, the people who asked me saw that I have a heart to serve the people.
That's right.
And if we do not serve the people, who are we serving? Is it ourselves?
Well.
Is it the bells and the whistles?
Well.
Is it the accolades? We're here at Sister's Kitchen at a buffet. And the buffet is much like the black community. We had so many things in front of us. You want collard greens, you get your collard greens. You want your cabbage, you get your cabbage. You get your meat, your potatoes. But we left that buffet to sit at a table where only crumbs are given. We are no longer going to stand or sit for these conditions that we live in. So win, lose, or draw, although I'm going for the gold.
You gonna win.
Yeah.
Although I'm going for the win.
That's right.
This is not the last that you have heard of me. Because if you have not heard of me before, the works that I have done, the works that I have been committed to, they speak loudly for me.
They do.
Yeah.
So today, we stand on a new foundation of hope, of promise, because hope is weak. Hope is weak. We stand on promises that this city will never be the same after today, after last week, after last month. We stand firm that we are building upon a foundation that when our children and our children's children come and look back and see the sacrifices that you all have made for our community, this, what Helen Ladson is doing, is just a drop in the bucket. I stand on your shoulders. I stand on your commitment, your dedication to this city, your love for this city that has poured so much into me. And so it is my reasonable service to pour back into you. And I thank you so much for your time. And if you do not take anything else from today, please know that I am you.
Woo!
Thank you.
I want y'all to know that what happens is I believe in this young lady so much that I'm giving all my riches to her today. Everything, every dime I own is going into this campaign. I want y'all to know that talk is cheap. I want y'all to know that if you want your babies not to be put in jail because they witnessed a fight. Y'all may not know this, but in Rutherford, Alabama.
Tennessee.
Tennessee, I'm sorry.
Tennessee.
Rutherford, Tennessee. A judge of, just like we have here, that I saw this morning, of the juvenile justice system, was putting babies as young as 7 years old in their prisons so that what could happen is they could make money off of our people. If we keep having the weak, no good, sorry leadership we have, your babies will be next. So we ask you, bring your pennies to us. I got your jar. You want your jars, you come by my house. I got some jars for y'all. Fill them up. But most of all, take people to the polls to vote. I went and voted today. And I can assure you, our folk are being tricked all over Brunswick, Georgia. There was a preacher, I ain't gonna call his name, because he had some of his people here today. And what they have done is a cheap trick in the city of Brunswick. That's right. Oh, I'm sorry, I got it the wrong. You have to talk to me because you know I have it upside down. What they did was, just like, have you ever heard of gerrymandering? Ain't that a cute little old trick? It's evil. Well, they added to that little trick here in Brunswick by getting with this preacher to have a precinct change. When I went up there to get the information about the precinct change, they had all of the precincts on a map so that the people familiar with where they vote at could go to the same voting place. The same voting space that they could go to is Howard Coffin Park. If you don't know who Howard was, look him up. But it is where most folk who are familiar from the Dixville area, coming from where you live at, Sister Cash, I bet you vote at Howard Coffin Park. Now, how do I know that? I know that because I know the boundaries. But the trick that they did was they set up a new voting precinct for Negroes who live where I live to be confused about where they should go to vote at. And when they go to their old familiar place to vote, guess what's gonna happen? It ain't gonna be no precinct. They moved it from Burroughs Millette to Zion Missionary Baptist Church to another church. Now, I ain't calling the church name now. The reason I ain't calling the church name is because if you're gonna be wise, the book says you have to be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. I went to vote today, and guess what they did? They gave me a number that inspired me so well. You know what they said? The 2 days that they've been having this vote, guess how many people voted? 36.
36.
If only 36 folk voted, do you know how much inspiration niggas ought to have with that today? We could beat them today. We could tear they behind up today. Because I'm going back out there and I'm going to get 108 of them to vote today. I'm going to get 3 times the number of people that have voted already. I'm going to get them to vote today, early. So I just want y'all to know, thank you for coming. And if you look at the invitation in the upper left-hand corner of that invitation, right? Who was the one that sponsored this press conference today?
The Dusty Crutchfield Women's Coalition.
The Dusty Crutchfield Women's Coalition. Now, I'm going to close with this because I know that black folks scared to hear the truth. But Mrs. Dusty was living in a place called Harris County, Georgia, north of Muskogee County. Muskogee is on the Alabama line, and so is Harris County. The town in Harris County is Hamilton, Georgia. White men had made a decision that they weren't going to love white women no more. Their love for black women had gone to a place of almost sinful. They had fallen in love with 2 things: black women and moonshine. Now, it wasn't just black women to kiss.
Right.
It was black women to love.
Yes, sir.
And this young man by the name of Norman Hadley Jr., white, he was rich. They say he was handsome. They knew he was a bachelor, and he was a member of the sheriff's family. Went over to make love to black women and drink him some moonshine. And he got shot and killed. Now, me personally, I ain't got no problem with that. That's my own personal desire. But what upsets me about the deal is that once he was dead, they were going to do the same thing they do with so many black men. They were going to frame 2 black men for his murder. So they said, Miss Dusty, tell us these 2 black men killed Norman Hadley Jr. Dusty said, I ain't gonna do it. I just ain't gonna do it. So what they did was they went and got a black preacher and put him in the mix. Now, why would they go and get a black preacher to put him in the mix? I can tell you, I'm glad you asked. Because we have a tendency to do everything, especially black women, to save black preachers. We will buy them cars. We will buy them shoes. We will buy them Flowshine shoes. We will buy them Brooks Brothers suits. We will buy them. We will take care of them like they are our own little babies. So they put a preacher in the mix. And they said, Dusty, tell us that these 3 men lynched or killed Norman Hadley Jr. She said, I ain't gonna do it. They took them to Friendship Missionary Baptist Church. They put a rope around their necks and threw it over the tree limb and said, Dusty, save yourself. Tell us these 3 men killed Norman Hadley Jr. Now, most black men in that situation, that's why we decided that we weren't going to endorse no black men in this time. Y'all, I'll tell you, who was Zagline and Willie Wills and who else you say was in there? That's what we would have done, you understand? If you think I'm lying, look at the Bible. The Bible said that when Jesus got lynched, the men ran like little donkeys. She said, I ain't gonna do it. They threw the rope. Save yourself. She said, pull the rope, cracker. And they lynched all 4 of them, shot them 300 times, and had a special bullet for Dusky. They shot her through her tongue. That's why the Dusky Crutchfield, what?
Women's Coalition.
Women's Coalition have put together this particular hearing today. And we really ask a lot of people to come. But guess what? We know how afraid they are. But that's why we have everything we got, we don't mind putting it in front of the whole world to see. Thank you for coming. We got, look at that. Hi, buddies. That's the end.
If I may, on behalf of the Getto Free Press, George Boston RHYNES, and I report what others ignore, and I'm out of Valdosta, Georgia. Why do you, I mean, you gave an eloquent speech, but what really drives you to be the mayor of Brunswick in 20 words or less?
20 words or less?
Yes.
Wow.
And if you must go over, then let's rotate.
Okay, thank you so much. I live in a community that is surrounded by mills and contaminated water. I know women that have crab boils every weekend, and the crabs that they are getting there, the water that they are getting their crabs from are contaminated. The water is contaminated, and the water that we boil our crabs in are contaminated. I have worked in the public school systems where there are children who have so many mental issues that are directly correlated to what is going on in our climate. I live in a city that is below sea level, and when a hurricane comes, we are going to be right in the same predicament that Louisiana is in. If we do not change, if we do not invest in solar energy, if we do not invest in wind energy, if we do not take into account of what we have for our resources. I live in a community where there is no public transportation for people who are walking every day or spending over $100 a week to go in for Uber. I live in a community where there is no economic development that is going on. I know women who have worked in the same job for over 10 years and have not advanced in their career at all. I know women who have to work 2 jobs and are told that they are lazy and do not care about their children because they do not show up to the PTA meeting, but they're trying to make ends meet. I live in these communities. I have experienced many of the things that these women have experienced. I have experienced not being able to pay your water bill because you have to feed your children, but you can't feed your children if your water is off and if your lights are off. So I live in these disparities, and I demand a change. And I demand a change not only for myself, but my neighbors who live in these disparities as well. And so I run because I am the community. I am in the middle of it, and I am you.
That's right.
Oh my God! Woo!
What will you say, what could you say to the people that have ran as mayor in decades gone by, and maybe those that are running against you that may never mention what you just mentioned?
What can I say to them?
Yes.
Vote for you.
Vote for me. You cannot heal what you refuse to see. You cannot teach what you do not love. You cannot touch what you do not see in yourself. So how can you lead a people if you do not want to be like them? There are so many people that are living in poverty and do not know it. They feel as if the world revolves around the money that they make, but economics are up and down. And so when those tables turn and you are on the side that is in the blight and in the disparities, you will want somebody to champion for you. So all I can say is to vote for me because I am you.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, Jesus.
So powerful. So powerful.
Mr. Zach,
Yes, sir.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Why did you call me over here today?
I call you over here today because Ghetto Free Press is the most truthful medium that is out here in the state of Georgia. I called you here because we needed to record this for people to understand exactly why we have Ms. Helen Ladson running for mayor of the city of Brunswick. We call you here today because we know you're not a liar. We call you here today because we don't trust none of the media that we've been going up against. We don't trust the Savannah Morning News,
That's right.
Jacksonville, whatever that is, we don't trust none of it. So we thank you so that we could put the truth in front of the entire world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And my final question, Mr. Zach, is this. Do you, from your heart, believe that any other candidate will address the issues that we've heard here today in the city of Brunswick?
I don't have to tell you from my heart. I'm going to tell you from both of them, the head and my heart. No, sir. They don't have the intelligence. They don't have the courage. And they are led by other folk to do their particular bidding and to carry out their particular schemes. Not another person running against Helen will be able to bring about the difference that this community needs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Everyone else?
Man.
Thank you.
Woo! Mr. Mayor. Trust me, sister. None of them are going to be able to compete with what you said today. Nobody. Okay?
Their brains don't even think like that.
Say what, baby?
Their brains don't even think like that.
And I missed my most important question. My most important question was going to be, are you looking forward to a forum, where you can actually face these people?
Yeah.
Where the news media will be there.
Yeah.
Can I say
Because,
this?
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but the reality is we've already had a couple of forums to your question I'm delivering, where these candidates had the opportunity to espouse how they feel and everything, which at the conclusion, for me, it might be a slight bias to this, but the bottom line, I still can assess things. Helen was the best out of them. She delivered, she was strong, she was believable, or credible, as people would say, and the idea of being at the forefront of something that's so progressive, the idea of looking at our plight through the concept of environment. Environment is something that's just so unique that we never. I remember years ago, back in the 90s, I would say, I started hearing this thing, probably from you too at the end of the day, but the bottom line is the environment. So there's two environments. We have the internal environment, which speaks to me, and then we have the external, and both go hand in hand.
That's
So
right.
now, to speak to what happens on the external environment impacts the internal, and vice versa, and it impacts us in all kinds of ways. And if I can just add this quickly, I recall an incident at Burroughs Millet where the children, I was subbing there at the time, and they had what do you call it? Sewage, raw sewage
That's
was
right.
coming through the bathrooms.
That's right.
They didn't tell, this, Rose Millette is approximately 85% black students.
Probably
And then-
90.
And then you have another, a larger of the minority percentage would be Hispanic students. So you're talking about black and brown, if we want to use those phrases, who sat there for, I think this went on for like 3 days.
3 whole days.
And they didn't tell anybody. The school system didn't see it. The superintendent didn't see it. It's nothing to issue to come there and everything to check on them. Now, and then so we sit around as a special ed. That's my background as special ed. Then you turn around and say, well, why are these kids acting as they do? But you already alluded to the idea. Well, it's the environment that impacts on them. And ultimately you say it's what they ingest, and what they breathe in and all those ways. And then they sit before you and you say, well, why can't Raekwon or Shaniqua read? You know, and so on. So I don't want to overindulge, but the bottom line is she speaks to it. She speaks to it in present tense. She's spoken to it in past tense. And she's living it, you know, through the I am you. So what can they bring up that she hasn't experienced, that we all haven't experienced? It's just that when we get a little bit of money, we in denial. We deny. When we get paid right, we say, well, I didn't see anything. So, but she speaks to it. And you know about the transportation, you know, which you did allude to. The idea, you know, Brunswick is a walking city, but it's hard to get from place to place.
With no
According to the
sidewalks.
data, that's right.
No sidewalks.
Well, the
Can't get nowhere
the
without
data
a
said
sidewalk.
it takes you on average 20 to 21 minutes to get from one part of Brunswick to another. You know, so
In a vehicle.
That's right.
In a vehicle.
That's right.
So walking.
It's interesting.
You're
But we
an
ought to
hour,
stop the
hour and a
vehicle
half.
mess too. And I'm gonna tell you what the vehicle mess is. The vehicle mess is a trick to add to the problems that we got with the environment. If you want to know one of the most lucrative businesses in the city in Glenn County, it is used car business operations.
State of Georgia too.
Okay?
Very protected.
Yeah.
You understand? And what happens is, not only does it add to the climate issue, but if you think about it, it adds to the poverty issue. And this particular community that you're in is the most polluted zip code in the state of Georgia. This is not a game. This is something that people need to understand. We going up against death every single minute of our lives, while the people who she's running against scared to mention it because they've been bought and bossed. And it is time for us to make sure that they do not win this election, because we need to make sure that what we don't end up with is death from the environment because of the plants, because of the Superfund sites, because of the RICO sites, because of the mercury that's in the fish. We need to get serious about what is going on in our community and that's how we know Mrs. Helen is part of this.
You
Now,
know,
she has endorsed changing the blight. She was saying that she had her shovel. She had a shovel at this site.
Oh yeah.
Hold on to that.
And if I could just chime in for one quick second, I don't know who the person was that talked about growing up in a two-parent household, nor do I really care. But the problem I have is when someone doesn't understand what it really means to be from this community.
Say it again, brother.
When someone does not understand what it really means to be from this community, I graduated high school in 1985. I would say half of the people I was in school with didn't come from those two-parent households.
That's right.
It just didn't happen.
Say it again,
didn't
brother.
happen. That women were definitely, the black community were definitely the immediate backbone of economics. I remember when North Street had a butcher shop. I also remember when we also had a bus that only traveled up and down our town.
Amen.
So when people talk about things we can't do, we shouldn't do, now they make buses that are green. So the bus go up and down, and it's pure green. We ain't even got to worry about, anything happening with the environment.
That's right.
I told somebody the other day, I said, you know what? If you were to think about it, just think about it for a second. It's 4 blocks on each side of Altoona.
That's right.
If all you got to do is walk 4 blocks to get to a bus stop, and Altoona runs the
right.
length of
right.
Brunswick,
That's right.
the full length, when you can get off at Fletsy and walk 2 more blocks if you work there, and come all the way back down that exact same bus line, straight through the middle of Brunswick. All you need is 2 buses running
right.
all day, every day. So when somebody tells me that we can't have a bus system, a transportation system, what they are actually telling me is they don't want economics
That's
to
correct.
move.
That's correct.
Because if we could get people from, let's say, think about where Dixville starts. It starts almost at the port. So if you got a Twix card and was on this side of Brunswick, you could get all the way to that side of Brunswick to get to the Union Hall. You can't even work if you ain't got a car. So you're not trying to build economics, because economic engines are built on a multiplicity or prong in a wheel. Each prong does something different. It keeps balance. And part of that balance is what Helen is talking about.
That's right.
It doesn't matter whether we come from a 2-parent household.
That's right.
It doesn't matter whether we got all the money that God gave us. It
Say it
doesn't matter
again.
if we are successful, whether we have, multiplicity of education. As a matter of fact, the term that people used for a long time was pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, which is some BS all within itself. There's no way you can pull yourself up by bootstraps, right? When the boots that they gave you are hand-me-down and the threads are strung on it. You can't pull yourself up, and that's what they've given us on a constant. As a farmer, I need this area to get right.
That's right.
Right? Because if it doesn't get right, I can't get the soil to live.
That's right.
Which means we don't have food. We only go to work for 3 things, of which you've alluded to all the way: food, clothing, and shelter.
That's it.
That's the only reason people go to work. The only reason. And the reason that the economics are so jacked, we got a Goodwill building and a Salvation Army building that's huge. Those things should be small. Those were like tiny. They were thrift stores when I was a child. Now they consume the size of a Walmart.
That's right.
That should never happen. And then, I'm sorry, you brought up the well, and that's been a part of my anger,
That's right.
because that used to be the bus station I grew up.
That's right.
When you want to talk about economic being black, I remember you got on the bus, right? You had all your food packed into that thing, and even if you were traveling all the way up to Connecticut, which is where I was born, you didn't get off the bus until you got up north. You stayed on that bus.
Shoebox.
It's a shoebox. You had that shoebox with you.
Shoebox.
And the reason I bring that up is because they moved the bus station all the way out to where I live,
Right.
thinking that that was going to change the homeless population. And now they think that moving the well out there is going to change the homeless population. Let me tell you something across the United States. I just left Seattle, largest homeless population that is happening right now. And they've started to become aggressive. Okay? Louisville, Kentucky, large homeless population in the middle of the city. Middle of the city. Every time they move everybody out, guess what everybody figures out how to do? Come back in. And it really ain't that hard, because they are on a mission. And what Helen is trying to do is to get it to where the economics balance out, so we don't have a large homeless population.
That's
Right? If you got transportation just up and down Altoona, you can get anywhere. Let's not worry about the island. The island will take care of itself. You know what I'm saying? Let those cars go over there, right? But we don't get none of the $8 that now it is when we go over to Jekyll. We don't get that. You see what I'm saying? So if we don't have a part in any of those economics, we can never pull ourselves up from hand-me-down bootstraps. We can't.
Can I say 2 quick things to your point? It's beautiful too.
That's what you do.
The idea of the homeless too moving out, we got to remember That's the purpose of community services. Because
There
if
we
you
go.
move them out, they may not have access to community services, which right now they could probably walk to or ride a bike to.
Absolutely.
You know. And then I'm gonna go entirely the other opposite direction. Moments ago, I couldn't interrupt Reverend Z at the time that he was speaking, but when he held up that penny jar, people got to understand how powerful pennies are. It's as a result of one penny that we have SPLOS, and we've had SPLOS throughout the years, and as a result of the SPLOS, the inner Brunswick community still looks the same, blighted. So the money is being funneled somewhere other than in the community. You know, the money is that you have these people in the community, these people, the residents, citizens of the community, who are paying and contributing towards the SPLOS,
penny at a
who are not, that's right, when just one penny, don't overlook and laugh at a penny now. The penny turns into $50 and $60 million or more. But at the end of the day, my understanding is that split is 80-20, if that's accurate, and I'm gonna roll roll with what was said. They said that 80% of it, so I was gonna use 10, you know, out of $1, but I like to use $100. So for every $100, $80 goes over to St. Simon's and Getto, whoever else it goes to. 20 of it remains in our community, which we're not using it properly. So, but anyway, the SPLOS is something, the pennies matter, is what I'm trying to say. And we need to redirect that monies back into our communities.
Let me tell you how much it matters, okay?
One penny.
Let me tell you how much it matters. They have had 6 SPLOS in this particular community, 6.
Major.
They have had 6 SPLOS in this particular community, 6. The last SPLOS they declared that they, off of that penny you're talking about, they raised $71 million. That's what they say they raised.
71 million.
But we had a graduate from Hampton University look at the numbers and recognize that they had raised $81 million. And so what the SPLOS is supposed to mean is special purpose local option sales tax. But out of that this is what woke us up. Out of that last $81 billion, when they divided it out, there was a fight between the wealthy white women and the mediocre white women on St. Simon's. The wealthy white women said, you can't come and play on our tennis court with your pickleball. So they took money out of the last SPLOS and built pickleball courts. That is exactly why we refer to it as special privilege local option sales tax. Because what has happened to us is while they've been taking every penny out of our pockets and giving it to the wealthy, we decided that we were going to defeat SPLOS. Now you talking about some Negroes mad with a Negro? The same Negroes that's running against her now went out of their mind because they said not another penny out of the pockets of the poor. And now they coming to me begging and say, you know, we can do better than what we did. I said not on my watch.
There you go.
I can tell you who's gonna be able to, whose watch is gonna be on. It's gonna be on Mayor Helen Ladson's watch.
That's right.
With us backing her up. That's who it is.
That's right.
So I keep my little signs on my car, knowing the KKK gonna stop me one day. But you know me, I got a problem. My problem is this: I suffer from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder from Vietnam. But God knows you Negroes suffer from it too.
Yep.
Post-traumatic slave disorder, and let's get busy and change this foolishness from being lovers of everybody and love the truth, and let's get busy and bring about some changes.
That's right.
My little sons make them mad every day, and I just look at them and say, look, feet don't fail me now, please.
Once again, this is the Get To Free Press, George Buster Ryan. We do it like this because we just the way we want you to have it. Bye-bye, don't we?
Wait till the next generation. Wait till the next generation. Wait till the next generation.
That's what they've been saying, you
Wait till the
see.
next generation.
There you'll find your
Wait till
identity.
the next generation.
We're gonna be ready to take a
Wait till
stand
the next generation.
and take control of the life that's in your hands. All along the road, freedom and democracy, gaining moral strength, wisdom and stability. There's gonna be a victory for the common man, a vast awakening all across the land, all across the land.
Wait till the next generation.
Apathy's gonna be hard to
Wait till the
find.
next generation.
We're gonna select the things that go into our
Wait
mind.
till the next generation.
We're gonna shape our own
Wait
destiny
till the next generation.
and alter the face of history. All along the road, freedom and democracy, gaining moral strength, wisdom and stability. There's gonna be a victory for the common man, a vast awakening all across the land, all across the
Wait
land.
till the next generation.
This I want you to
Wait till the
understand.
next generation.
I ain't gonna,
Wait till the next generation.
cause
This is the next generation, man.